We ready? All right, good evening everyone, and a very warm welcome to BaytulHuda. It's so lovely to see you all here tonight as we continue our special November series focusing on men's health and men's mental health awareness. Tonight is actually a very special night, the first of its kind here at BaytulHuda, and I'm truly grateful that we get to share it here together as a community. Before we get started, just some quick housekeeping notes. Please make sure your phones are on silent so we can all stay present and respectful throughout the program. We've got some beautiful catering set up today from the lovely Anne from the Espresso Lab in Chester Hill, so thank you very much for that. So please stay back and enjoy the delicious food and take the opportunity to connect and chat. You'll also find handouts at the back table with contact details of support services and mental health resources. If at any point you'd like to grab one or take a quiet moment, please feel free to do so. We've got a really meaningful evening ahead with a special guest joining us tonight for an open and honest conversation. I won't take more of your time. I'll hand it over to the youth panel who'll be leading tonight's special segment. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum all. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Manil, for our introduction. Just a quick heads up that we will be touching on some sensitive topics tonight. So if at any point during the night you need to step outside, feel free to do so. And as Manil said, there is handouts on the front desk with resources that are available for all. Obviously, we're all gathered here tonight for a very special evening. We have the two-time world champion, Billy Dib, with us. Let's give a round of applause. So to start us off, we're going to go back to the very beginning, to your early childhood and what that was like. So we're going to get Sam to start us off.
So growing up in Engadine as one of the only few Lebanese families, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced at school, especially around bullying or fitting in?
I would definitely say that the biggest challenge was we stood out like a sore thumb. You know, we grew up in an area where everybody was, sorry? Okay. Yeah, everybody was predominantly white. You know what I mean? They had white skin, blonde hair, you know, blue eyes, and here I was, a young kid alongside my brothers, you know, brown hair or black hair, brown eyes, brown skin. We stood out like a sore thumb. And here's the thing, right, for me is that as a young boy, you don't quite understand why people are being so derogatory and so nasty in a way. But the thing is that as I grew older, I understand that people fear things that are different. And I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I grew up with a lot of cousins, and one of my cousins was disabled. He was actually in a wheelchair and spent the majority, he's still in a wheelchair to today, but he lives an amazing life. He has 4 children. God sent him a beautiful wife, but I feared him when I was a kid because he was different. So I understood, like, you know, when you grow up in a situation, when you're growing up in an area, those people who were picking on me and my brothers because they feared us. They feared something that was different. And so, you know, you can't really hold that against people, but I feel like in the world that we live in today, it's you know, it's reckless of parents to not educate their children to be kind. You know what I mean? And like, that's all we wanted. We wanted people to be kind to us. And my father, he was so intelligent. He was like, listen, we're going to kill them with kindness. No matter what they do, we're going to kill them with kindness. Just be kind. We'll eventually win them over. I mean, it took a long time, but we eventually got there.
Yeah. You've mentioned your experiences with being hit, pushed, and even spat on by bullies. How did that early experience shape your confidence and your mindset later on in life?
Well, I mean, earlier on it wasn't very good because I'll be honest, I used to get up in the morning and look for any excuse not to go to school. I was one of those kids that I'd tell my dad every day that I was sick. And obviously my dad knew what was going on, but he tried to spur me on by like, my dad had a convenience store. He's like, listen, I'll give you some lollies, I'll give you this and I'll give you that, just to try to encourage me to go to school. Eventually I'd go there and, you know, we used to walk to school, and I used to think like if I was walking, if I stepped in some mud, or you know, if I felt like my shirt was dirty, I'd turn back and go home because I knew that was going to be like a point where people could look at it and be like, you know what, you're dirty, you're an Arab, that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
But here's the thing is that like eventually I turned them around, you know what I mean? Like the truth is that once I found sport, and the sport that I found was boxing, and I learned to defend myself, I pretty much told people like, you're either going to step down or I'm going to make you step down. It's one option, you know, you're either going to do it the right way and walk away, or otherwise I'm going to make you step down in front of everybody. And I never ever was a bully. Never. I never bullied anybody. I just basically told them, you know, either you leave me alone or I'm going to embarrass you in front of a lot of people right now. And so I did it on a few occasions, but most of the times I was able to disable the situation and just walk away.
Yeah. Was there a specific moment or a person in your childhood that helped you see your potential?
I would definitely say my mum. My mum was definitely somebody who played a major role, and I'll share a story with you because when I was just 8 years of age, my mother took my brother Nasser and I, who was 9 at the time, for a walk. And as we were walking in Ingeni, my mother wears a scarf. This man pulled my mum, she was holding us like this, and the next thing you know, my mum was on the ground, and my mum was very frantic in her actions at the time. I remember it clearly because it's something that happened to me that was very vivid in my life at the time. She pushed us aside, and this man was being like, go home, you dirty wogs, and whatever. And my mum got up, and I mean, she beat the brakes off this guy. I'm not joking. She beat him up so bad. No joke. She beat him up so bad. She pushed us back and she smashed this guy so bad. And I was like, oh my God, my mum is the real life Jackie Chan. Oh no, you know. So like, we grew up in a situation where, as kids, like we're told to look up to people like Batman, Superman, you know, Spider-Man. But my real life hero was my mum. You know, I looked at my mum like she was an absolute legend. She used to tell us all these stories, and I was like, man, my mum's for real.
It's good to have. Being bullied often comes with those experiences, the feeling, of shame and isolation. These often result with negative self-talk and all that. How did those experiences help build your resilience later on in life?
I feel like everything that happened to me as a kid transformed me into the man that I am today. I feel like if I didn't go through everything that I went through as a kid, all of the negative things, and you know, all of the setbacks that I had in my life, and the loss of Sarah and all these things, I never would have made it through my cancer journey, because it was like my resilience that I had built, that, you know, I built this thick skin, like a resilience to overcome anything, you know what I mean? So like, once I was in a situation where I was basically fighting for my life, I had to lean on everything that had happened to me in the past, and it got me through. It was like, so everything, I remember going back on so many things and talking about bullying and all that. So I tell you, I got a phone call about 5 years ago from a guy by the name of Dylan. He's a friend of mine today. At the time, he wasn't really a friend. This guy gave me absolute hell at school. He absolutely tortured me at school. He was relentless in his approach. He would not leave me alone. He'd pick on me. I'm talking, he's one of the guys that would spat on me and did all of that, right? Well, he reached out to me like 5 years ago and said, listen, man, I really need to speak to you. And I was like, man, absolutely. Is everything all right? He's like, yeah, no, not really, man, but I need to come and see you. Can I take you out for some dinner or something? I said, no problem. I said, I live in Concord. He said, I'm perfect. I'll work in the city. I'll meet you in Concord. So he comes to and then first thing he did when he saw me was he walked up to me and he gave me a hug. And he hugged me for like 5 minutes. He wouldn't let go. And I was like, oh, you okay, man? He started crying. And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, I need to apologize to you, man, because I made your life hell at school. And it's like, it's all right, man. I am who I am today because of people like you. So, I appreciate it, but it's all good. I'll put that in the past. And he said, if you were to know what I'm going through right now, I said, you guys, man, I know what I did to you was wrong, because I'm at work, in the workplace, and I'm getting bullied every single day, man, and I feel this small. And I know I did that to you. And I was like, it's okay, man. It's all good. And so I nurtured him through what he was going through, So like, I understand, and we're all going to go through certain things in life.
What's some advice you would give to kids today that are being underestimated or bullied at school?
If any kid out there is getting bullied, if there's anybody in this room that's getting bullied, then I'm going to tell you something. I've been to schools, right? And I ask this question all the time. I said, listen, if you're somebody who's being bullied, be brave enough, put your hand up. And you might get like 2 or 3 people who put their hand up, you know what I mean? Like, you like, just like, yeah, I'm getting bullied, help me, you know? It's one of those, right? And then I say, okay, put your hand down for a second. Now, if you're a bully, please put your hand up. How many people put their hand up?
Say 0.
None.
Yeah.
So let me tell you something. This is what I tell kids. I said, listen, bullies are somebody who are cowards. Bullies are cowards. Because I just said now, if you're a bully, put your hand up. No one put their hand up. So you're obviously a coward. You're hiding behind something. And the truth is that no one's born a bully. No one is born with the gene that says, you know what? You've got the bully gene. You're born with it. And so no one can say that, you know what I mean? Like, bullying is something that occurs at home. It's something that's taught at home. You know, like sometimes you see your mum and your dad arguing. Your dad says something to your mum, the mum says something back, whatever. You start thinking that that's normal. So you take that to school. And so next time you get into a fight, you say something very derogatory to that person, whatever, because you heard that from your parents. It doesn't start at school. No one's a bully. And look, I know that for a fact because it all starts at home. Yeah. So as parents, we need to do the best that we can to be kind, caring, nurturing, so that we can raise respectful children.
Yeah. Obviously going through all that, especially at a young age, must have been very hard for you, but that's obviously shaped the person you are now. So I'm going to pass it on to Daniel so we can jump into the next chapter of your life.
Thank you.
So let's take it forward a few years. Let's go back to when you were 12.
Yeah.
Your father took you to that boxing gym for the first time. What was going on in your life at that moment? How were you dealing with things up until that point?
And at the age of 12, I was getting bullied left, right, and center. You know, it was, as I said to you, it was relentless. And the surroundings that we grew up in were very, very difficult. But my father, he was very intelligent in his approach. You know, my older brothers played football, they played rugby league, they were talented rugby league players. Some of my brothers played Jersey flag. They were very talented, and so they were able to break the barriers down and make friends with their mates outside of school. And at school, you know, like they started getting a bit of success in that. But for me, I didn't have any of that because I wasn't doing any after school sports. You know what I mean? I was just going to school, getting into fights, getting sent home. You know, it was a never-ending story. You know, it was like one of those things where I was always on the back foot. And then my dad one day was like, listen, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you to the gym. I'm going to take you to sign you up to play football. And after a few weeks of playing football and things started getting a bit better, one day, this trainer, he pulled out some boxing pads and a bag of boxing gloves that stunk like crap, right? I still remember the smell was horrible. And he basically said, today we're going to do some boxercise. And I grew up in a household with 5 brothers and 1 sister. The only franchise that played on repeat in our household was Rocky. We used to beat the crap out of each other because my dad owned a convenience store and he sold boxing gloves in the store. We used to take the gloves, put them on, fight each other, and then my mum would come in and deal with the winner, you know what I mean? Why'd you smack your brother for? You know, it was one of those things, right? But so when I was at the football field, I picked up the pads and I punched the pads like really well, and the trainer was like, have you ever boxed before? And I said, no, but I've watched a lot of Rocky movies. And he goes, listen kid, he goes, I don't know what it is, but I think you found something. I said, what is it? And he goes, I think you've got the knack. That's exactly what he said. And so his name was Mr. Carpenter. He said, tell your father to take you to the Sutherland PCYC. So I had to sort of like work out how I'm going to do this. And I was very witty as a kid, and I still am, I think, you know what I mean? My father was not going to take me to the boxing gym because he wasn't going to let me upskill my skills and beat the shit out of my brothers. So I said to him, I said, listen, Dad, Mr. Carpenter said that if you want me to be the next Mal Meninga was a really talented football player, he said, then you got to take me to the boxing gym. And so my dad was like, yeah, well, what are you going to do there? I said, I'm just going to build my fitness and get better so that I'm fitter on the field. Anyway, I remember that day so vividly. I remember my dad parked up outside the PCYC. I had my gloves on already. My brother gave me these really cheap, shitty Ring Pro gloves, right? And the thumbs were stuck together. And my dad said, "Oh, all right, I'm gonna give you some money." So he gave me $1 coin. He put the $1 coin in between the thumb like that. I walked up the stairs. I'm not joking. I walked up the stairs with the gloves on, ready to go. No bag, no nothing, no skipping rope, no mouth guard, nothing. Knock on the door with my elbow, and the trainer opened the door. His name was Rusty Penton, and he said, "How you doing, young man?" I said, "Good." And he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm here to fight." And he goes, that's a good story. He goes, who sent you here? And I said, oh, Mr. Carpenter told me that I should come up here and do some boxercise, maybe learn something. And as soon as the door opened up, I saw these two people in the ring. One's name was Alex, who I ended up fighting at some point in my amateur career, and the other guy's name was Adam, who was an Egyptian guy. And I just watched these two guys absolutely beating the crap out of each other, and I thought to myself, oh my God, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to fight, and I don't want anyone to stop it. I don't want no one breaking it up. I'm looking at this and I'm like, there's no teacher in the ring breaking it up. These guys are going hammer and tongue, and I thought, this is exactly what I want to do. And so I start looking around the gym and I see all these posters, and I can see like Costa Zoo on the wall, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, and I'm thinking, who are these guys? Like, who are these people? I vaguely know Muhammad Ali, but who are these other people? So I start doing my research, and like the vision was so clear. And now when I go to schools and I talk to kids, and this is like sort of veering off, but I'm going to come back to it, he's saying, I told kids, I said, everything in your life starts with a vision. That vision for me was seeing that gym. It was so clear that I knew that that was exactly what I wanted to do. The next thing that came after that was the consistency. And for me, like walking up to that gym that day and saying, I want to be a boxer, then if the next day came and I'm like, I think I'm going to be a garbage cleaner, you know what I mean? Or, maybe I might be a lawyer or a doctor. That's not a consistent vision. That's just a thought. We have thoughts every single day. Every day, you go through life and you're like, one day, man, I could do this and I could make $1 million doing that. And if I did that, I could make a lot of money, So you have all these thoughts, but it's where the consistency is. That's when you know you've found something. And I was very consistent in my approach. I wanted to learn about the fighters. I wanted to read about them. I wanted to apply myself. And then I did that. And like, I just found success right away. Like literally after walking into that gym, 3 weeks later, I was having my first fight. That's how like motivated I was to find success in the sport of boxing.
So you'd say that it clicked for you kind of instantly, that
you
weren't just there to learn how to throw punches, but it was leading you something bigger.
No, it was an instant love. It was like an instant love, and my dad, again, because he's such a clever man and so focused on what he does, he quickly realized how much I loved the sport of boxing, and he was quick to use that against me. So he was like, if you don't do well at school, you're not going to go to boxing. And my father was like, test me. And so, sometimes you want to be a young kid, you want to push the envelope. So I'd push the envelope, and the school would ring my dad, and my dad would never smack me. Never did he smack me. Never did he slap me or nothing. He would just say to me, you know what? That's really good. I'm really, really proud of what you've done. He goes, but that's cost you a week of boxing. And no matter what I did to try to make it up to my dad, or clean the floor, or clean the fridges and do it, like my dad owned a convenience store, so I was trying to suck up and do whatever I had to do to try to go back to boxing. He'd be like, it's not happening. The week is off. They're done. And it happened 3 times. And you know what? After it happened 3 times, I went from the back of the class to the front of the class. I went from getting like 51, 52% to getting 70 and 80. And then I started getting really good results, and my dad, it worked. You know what I mean? Whatever my dad was trying to do worked, because all I cared about was getting the results, getting on the bus, get home, drop the bag, get on the train, go straight to the gym and just chase that dream. That's all I cared about.
So the years went by and you started to make a name for yourself, Billy the Kid. The wins started to stack up, the championships soon followed. But with that success comes its own weight, doesn't it? How did you handle all that pressure when things were moving so quickly?
I actually, because I grew up in a household with like older brothers, I could sort of learn from their mistakes, but I sort of felt like, because our household was very religious, my dad had been to Hajj over 30 times. In the time that I've been alive, I'm 40, I think my dad's been to Hajj something like 30 something times, more than that I think as well. I used to go every year, and so we grew up in a religious household, and so I always looked at it like it was a responsibility. Being a Muslim, we were already a target. Like I was already a target. And I'll tell you, when I was at the peak of my boxing career as a world champion, I remember seeing this Jewish guy. His name was Victor Greenberg. I'll never forget him. He's a dear friend of mine, somebody that I care a lot about, a Jewish man. And I remember seeing him at a boxing gym in Marrickville. And I approached him and I said, "Excuse me, sir, are you the owner of Lonsdale? And he said, yes, that's me. And I said, do you think you could sponsor me? And he said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm Billy Dib. He goes, oh, I know who you are. You're a good fighter. And I said, would you sponsor me then? He goes, oh, look, there's a lot to talk about before I sponsor you. So he said, why don't you come and see me in my office? So I went to his office and I sat down with him and he said to me, he goes, if I sponsor you, how do I know that you will not get caught on the corner wearing a Lonsdale jumper urinating in the corner in public? And so let me just tell you something about me. Before you insinuate that I will do something like that, I said I'm a Muslim. And before I represent your brand, I represent my faith and my mother and my father. I said, that's what comes first. I go, before your brand is my mother, my faith, then my mother and my father. You know what he said to me? You're on board. And do you know what? He sponsored me for like $250,000 over the course of like the next 6 years. And he gave me over $1 million worth of clothing that I gave out to all of my friends, all of my supporters. This guy was incredible, you know what I mean? But I won him over with that one comment. And you know what? He told me that he'd never been invited to a dinner with anybody that he'd ever sponsored. And he'd sponsored people like Paul Gallen, Todd Carney, Candace Falzon, Lauren Eagle, all these people. No one ever invited him to dinner. So I invited him to dinner. You know what I done? When he knocked on the door, I got my mum wearing a scarf to open the door for him, just to show him that how Muslims are. We're very catering, you know what I mean? It was like I wanted to show him who we are as Muslims.
Yeah. So you achieved incredible things. 98 wins out of 113 fights. 3-time Australian champion, 2-time world champion, and you got to train with legends like Mike Tyson and Prince Nassim. I'm sure after you joined that boxing gym you looked up to. What, from the outside to everyone here, I'm sure it looked perfect, but internally, what was going on? What did it cost to always be the champion?
Well, I mean, look, I sacrificed my whole life as a young boy. I had no life, you know what I mean? I had, my life was based on a boxing gym. You know what I mean? My life was wake up in the morning, go for a run, come back. I was always battling the scales as a young boy. I was always fighting with the scales because I was always trying to make weight. So there was no childhood. There was no hanging out with the friends. There was no, McDonald's. There was none of that. All that childhood stuff, all my cousins would go eat McDonald's. I'd watch my cousins eat McDonald's, you know what I mean? It would be Eid and everyone would be eating hulun, and that's not me, but I sacrificed my life because I had a dream. And I was willing to sacrifice everything to get to that dream. I was going to stop at nothing. Let me tell you, it's like people that were around me, they didn't believe in me. They didn't believe that I could become a world champion. Even maybe my dad at some point was like, man, this is a far-fetched dream. But I used to tell my dad, I said, Dad, don't blink. It's coming. Believe me, it's coming. And to me, it didn't matter who believed in me and who didn't, because I believed in myself. And you know what? Later down the track in my life, I created a brand called Believe. B-I-L-L-Y-V-E. And people are like, that's not how you spell believe. I said, yes, it is. Because Billy Dib had to believe in himself before anybody else did. And if you're going to succeed in your life, you're going to need to believe in you first. Because once you believe in yourself, then you give permission to everybody else to believe in you. But if you don't believe in yourself, you'll never succeed in anything that you do. The belief starts with you. And I'll tell you now, in 2011, I won my second world title. My trainer at the time told me that I would never win a world title. When I won my first world title, he came into the change room to congratulate me. You know what I said to him? I said, didn't you say that I'd never become a world champion? He goes, well, man, look, that's just an IBO world title. I said, that's the starting point. I said, you wait to see what's coming. Anyhow, I ended up losing my next championship fight. Then I approached him to help me with some training. And he ended up guiding me through 9 wins, and we finally got to the 10th fight, and I was fighting Jorge Lasieva for the IBF featherweight world title. And I'll tell you right now, when I won the world title, I went to the green room to do some interviews. When I came back to the change room where all my team was and that, the first person I approached was him. Do you know what he was doing? He was sitting down just like this. He had his head between his legs like that. And I thought, this is such a beautiful moment. I walked up with the belt and I put it right underneath his face and I said, wasn't that the belt you said that I'd never win? Right? So, as I said to you, I was super determined. To me, it didn't matter whether you believed in me or not. I was going to get there. I was super focused. And I sacrificed my whole life for that one moment. And I'm telling you, it was the greatest moment of my life, so I wouldn't change it for a thing.
Definitely paid off. Now, a lot of men, especially athletes, struggle with mental health, but they never reach out because of this stigma that it's weak to ask for help, or it means you're weak. During those years, when things got heavy, who did you turn to? Or did you feel like you had to carry it all alone?
No, I never carried the burden on my own because I had my career. This is the way that I looked at my career. It was like my success was my family's success. And when I was winning, they were winning. I was all about taking them on the journey with me. I wanted my brothers on the journey with me. So my brother Ahmad was my manager. My brother Jihad, who was the oldest, was like the second father. My brother Muhammad worked the corner with me. So we had an amazing thing going on. So my success was their success. So anytime I was ever going through anything, I could always lean on my brothers. But I would say that my brother Jihad, if you look at some of my fights, look at the ones that I lost. The first person that I turned to and the first person that I put my head on his chest is my brother Jihad. If you guys don't mind, I'm just going to take this off for a second, please. Keeps on rattling. Okay. Yeah, so my brother Jihad was the one that I would always like lean on. You can see it in all the videos. I'd always put my head on his chest and he would always console me right away. He's like, don't worry about it. And I guess, the thing was for me is that even when I lost my championships, my brothers were like, listen, man, once a champion, always the champion. So don't even stress. It's all good. You've already achieved it. You set your goals, you did it, and it's all good.
Yeah. There's a verse in the Quran, chapter 2, verse 286, that says, Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. When you were in the thick of it, especially in the peak of your career, carrying all that pressure and all those expectations, did that verse feel like a comfort to you, or did you ever feel like it was too much to handle?
No, it was never too much to handle. And I actually told you, like I said to you, I actually felt like, it was a major responsibility upon me as a Muslim to carry myself in a way to make our ummah proud. I wasn't just worried about me. I was paving the way for people who were going to come after me. Who came before me was gone already. But now it was my chance to pave the way for who's going to come after me. So I always looked at it like an amazing opportunity. And I'll tell you a story. And it's quite funny in a way. It might make you laugh. But when I was 26 years of age, my brother Ahmad rang me. I was in Dubai at the time and I was hanging out with Prince Nassim Hamed, who was my childhood hero. And my brother said, listen, Floyd Mayweather and 50 Cent have just contacted me and they want to meet you in Las Vegas. And I was like, wow, are you joking? He's like, no, man, they want to sign you to TMT Promotions. And I was like, that's a life-changing opportunity, bro. He goes, you got to get on a plane. He goes, can you meet me in Vegas? And I said, no. I said, listen, this is what I'm going to do. Let me come home, let's regroup, and we'll get on a plane the next day, you and I, and go together. And that's exactly what we did. And I remember being on the plane, okay, and they say the dua is mustajab when you're traveling. So I'm on the plane and I'm saying, Ya Rab, if this is a good thing for me, please make it easy. Please make this deal come together easy. And so we arrive into Las Vegas and I'm with my brother Ahmad. We get picked up by a guy called Tony Smalls. This guy's called Tony Smalls, but there's nothing small about him. I'm telling you, this guy's like this big. I'm not joking, right? He's like, what's up, man? Yo, 50 sent me to pick you up. And as we got there, we had learned that 50 Cent had just been, Floyd Mayweather had just been incarcerated for domestic violence. And so now we're only meeting with 50 Cent, which is okay. And now 50 Cent turns up in the evening, he's in the Lamborghini, there's a Rolls Royce in front of him, like a little bit of an entourage and whatever. And the first thing I said to 50 Cent was, do you remember me? And he said, yeah. And I said, where do you remember me from? And he goes, I met you in 2006 when Floyd Mayweather beat Oscar de la Hoya. And I said, that's right. He remembered. So I was like, you know what? I've got this guy covered. At least he knows who I am now. You know what I mean? Like, he's not just doing what Floyd Mayweather wants him to do. And so he takes us out for some dinner, Chinese food. And then I'm thinking that we're going to just put this deal together and I'm going to go home, you know what I mean? Because that's all I cared about. I just wanted to put the deal together and go home. And then he said, no, we're going to go out for a night out together. We'll have a nice night out, and tomorrow we'll put the deal together. So I was like, all right, cool. So where are we going? He said, that's a surprise. Anyhow, so we turn up at this building, a massive building, and there's all these supercars. I'm talking Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, like the Aston Martins, every major looking car was right there. And I was like, man, where are we, at a car show or something? He's like, nah. Anyway, then he opened up the boot of his car and he empties out a backpack and a gun falls out, 2 watches that are completely crystalled out, and 3 major blocks of money, like big blocks of money. And I'm looking at him and he picks up one of the blocks and he cracks it in half and he goes, take this. And I'm like, I'm not taking that. He's like, no. I'm like, I don't want that. And he's like, take it. And I'm like, what for? And he's like, you're going to need it. And I'm like, no. He goes, no, just take it. And I'm like, I don't want it. He's like, just take it. And so I took it. I'm holding on to this brick of money. I get to this door and this guy like checks to see if I've got any weapons or anything like that. And then there's this like thin walkway and you walk through and it's completely dark. And then it opens up and it's a massive, massive, massive warehouse that's been turned into a strip club. Let me tell you something. It's the first day of Ramadan. I'm not joking. It's the first day of Ramadan. And my brother and I, we looked at each other. My brother looked like he's seen the ghost, and I must have been the same for real, because I'd never been into anything like that in my life. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, I see this stuff in the movies, but there's women all over the poles, and there's bottles and sparklers going on everywhere, and I'm like, the music's blaring, and I'm like, my heart's now, it's like beating 100 miles per hour, right? And we sat down, and then 50 gets a stack of money. It was like $10,000, and he gives it to this person and says, like, set the table up. So we sit down and I'm looking, and then I sat next to my brother and I looked at him and I go, bro, it's the first day of Ramadan. And okay, we're in a strip club. And he goes, man, we got to get out of here. And so, like, maybe 2 or 3 minutes passed, we'd already been in there, and we sat down, and then 50 sat down with my brother's like, hey, 50, we got to tell you something. He's like, listen, we're Muslims. We don't do this. We got to go. And 50's like, why? And he's like, it's the month of Ramadan, brother. And we don't do this on our best day, you know what I mean? So we got to go. He's like, yeah, I'll come with you guys. No joke, wahyat Allah, just like that. He's like, we'll come with you guys. So we're walking out of the club, and as we're walking out, this stripper says to 50 Cent, yo, 50, where you going, baby? And he goes, yo, baby, you lucky it's Ramadan. That's exactly what happened, right? We walked out, he dropped us back off at the Hilton Hotel, and I don't know where he went, but we went back to sleep, and I was like, man, this is not a good start, bro. I said, if the deal ain't on point tomorrow, I'm out. And my brother's like, yeah, bro, this is no good, man. I was like, we can't be doing that, bro. And that, wallah, subhanAllah, but it was my faith and me thinking that, look at this, like, I'm gonna come and sign a deal, so I'm not gonna like forget my faith. That's number one for me, you know what I mean? So I walked out. Maybe he learned something that day, I don't know, but he must have learned that Muslims don't do that.
So you found the strength to get through those internal struggles in your early years, but as you were saying, you had someone that was in your corner meant to be backing you, and it made things worse eventually. So I'll pass it on to Noah now to talk more about the business side of things.
All right.
Okay, so more on 50 Cent. In 2012, you signed with 50 Cent's SMS promotions. You just said TMT. Was it TMT or SMS?
Now, so there's a story behind that.
Yeah.
But do you want to keep going with the question?
I'll continue the question and we'll tell the story.
All right.
This was supposed to be your big break. When that turned into what you called the worst decision of your career, how did that betrayal affect your mental health and your ability to trust people?
Yeah, so when I signed, when I went to Las Vegas, I signed a contract that says Floyd Mayweather, Curtis Jackson, and Billy Dib. Curtis Jackson signed his, I signed mine, but Floyd Mayweather was in jail. Anyhow, so I go back home, he gave me a bonus. He gave me a $100,000 bonus, cash bonus. You know, and like we signed a $3.3 million deal. 3-year, $3.3 million deal. And that was at a minimum. So I was like, man, my life's just changed. I'm an automatic multi-millionaire, right? I'm now, that's it, I'm good. I don't have to worry about anything ever again. And so we then go back home, everything is as it needs to be, and then Floyd Mayweather eventually gets out of jail. And once he gets out of jail, there's a feud that starts between him and 50 Cent. And the feud is that Floyd Mayweather at the time was dating a woman named Miss Jackson. And so when Miss Jackson was not with Floyd, she was hanging out with 50 Cent, and obviously 50 Cent was doing whatever he was doing. And Floyd Mayweather sort of got wind of some things that were going on, and then Floyd started saying that I'm not happy with the bonus money that he gave you guys. He gave me $100,000 US, which is really not much. For me at the time, it was a lot of money, but the other fighters got like 500,000. He signed 3 fighters, me, Andre Durrell, and Gamboa. And they got like $400,000 or $500,000 bonuses, right? Nevertheless, Floyd Mayweather gets out. I remember speaking to him on the phone and thinking that, okay, this is gonna really be something special. And then all of a sudden, one night, it's like 4 in the morning, and I get a call from a guy named Gary Saku. Never forget the phone call. He says to me, my name is Gary Saku, and I'm the attorney for Floyd Mayweather. And I just need to let you know that Floyd Mayweather and 50 Cent were no longer going to be in partnership, and yeah, you're going to need to work out who you want to go with. And I was like, yeah, I know who I'm going with. And he goes, who? And I said, I'm going with Floyd. And so then I speak to Leonard Ellaby, who looks after Floyd Mayweather. He says, yeah, no problem. I said, he said, what did 50 give you? I said, look, he bought me a car and he gave me 100,000 US. And he goes, can you give the car back and the money? I said, I can't. I said, I bought the car from the dealership, and the money is in a long-term deposit, and can Floyd give it back to him? And he's like, no, he can't give it back to him. And so anyhow, 50 Cent then rang me a few days later. I was in Parramatta Shopping Centre, and he's explaining to me that, listen, don't worry about Floyd, sign with me, trust me, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do concerts in Australia, and I'm going to put you on as the main event. I'll do like music concerts. And he sold me this pipe dream, you know what I mean? So I said, you know what, I'll go with you, it's fine. So I decided that I would go with 50 Cent, and the companies parted ways. TMT was his. He started SMS Promotions. But then the power of Floyd Mayweather was incredible. Floyd Mayweather is basically the #1 fighter in the world at the time, and he has the power of contacting HBO, Showtime, all of the major networks, and saying, don't put Billy Dib on. And that's exactly what he did. I was set to fight against an opponent named Jason Velez in New York, Madison Square Garden, on the undercard of Austin Trout versus Miguel Cotto, which was going to be a major event, and I was super excited. I was in camp, and then one day I come home from training camp, I'm laying down in my bed, and my phone's like ding, 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 and I'm like, what? And I'm looking at Billy Dib taking off card, and I'm like, what's going on here? So I go outside and I see my lawyer. Because my lawyer at the time was with me, he's staying with me. And I'm like, bro, is something going on? And he's like, yeah, man. He goes like, well, we've been trying to keep it away from you. I said, man, it's all over Twitter. And he's like, what is it? I'm like, I'm off the card. And he goes, yeah, man, like, we've been trying to get you back on. And Floyd's basically blacklisted you, man. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, the TV networks don't want to put you on. So he had me blacklisted. So basically I couldn't get on TV, so I was out of the ring for like 9 or 10 months. And then 50 finally got a show together on ESPN, and I was set to be facing a guy called some opponent from Argentina, and then like 10 or 12 days out from the fight, he pulled out. And I was now running low on funds. I had no money. I was like, my bills were stacking up, and so then he said, you know, I got this opponent that can fill in, his name's Gradovich and whatever, Evgeny Gradovich, and I was like, man, just whatever, you know, let's just do whatever. And you know, you wouldn't believe it, like, I ended up going to America, I think it was like 10 days out from the fight. I had a really bad throat infection and whatever, and anyway, I got there, I was feeling a lot better. Fight happens, and then I don't know how the judges score it, but I ended up losing a split decision. I lost my title, and everything from that point just went like it was crash and burn from that point. And I literally hated the sport from that point. I despised the sport. I hated everything about it, and I hated everybody that was involved in it. I never wanted anything to do with that. The only reason why I kept on boxing from that point was because that was all I knew. I knew nothing else. I mean, I was educated. I went to school. I got a degree in real estate, but I had no interest. My interest was boxing, but I had lost the motivation for life.
Yeah. Just a quick question. So you had a choice between 50 Cent and Floyd Mayweather. What made you prefer Floyd Mayweather over 50?
Well, firstly, I felt like Floyd Mayweather was the one to go to because he was in the boxing industry. But the reason why I couldn't go with Floyd was because I couldn't give him back the $100,000. I didn't have it. So I was forced to go with 50 Cent based on $100,000 that I had taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. You said you were owed 7 figures. This might tie into what you were saying just then.
Yeah.
Financial stress is one of the leading causes of mental health struggles in men, but there's often shame in talking about it. Did you feel pressure to hide the financial struggles, the financial devastation, and how did that impact you as a man who was supposed to be successful? Obviously, at this point, you were known.
Yeah. So here's the thing about Billy Dib at that time. Everywhere I went, people thought that I was really wealthy, and the thing was, they had no idea that I was struggling. I was like really like I was basically trying to fight just to get the money to pay the bills and stuff. So, but the thing is, everywhere you go, everyone thinks, oh my God, this guy's really wealthy. So you get treated like you're this wealthy guy, but you know that you're not. You're like you're on struggle street, and you can't tell anybody that you're struggling because you got to live this image, right? And so I wasn't trying to live the image, but that was just the image given to me. Oh man, you must have like big houses and all these things, and they have no idea that I'm trying to just pay the mortgage and whatever, you know, like I'm on struggle street. And so it was really hard. But I'll tell you now, I don't know if any of you got this question, but I have to jump to this because this is really important. This is where I made the decision to part ways with that money. And so, you know, my then partner Sarah comes to me and says to me, listen, I've got a lump on my neck. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I've got a lump on my neck and I'm not, you know, I don't know, I just don't feel, I feel tired or whatever. So we go and get it checked out. Anyway, they do a biopsy, and the biopsy comes up, it's that something in her lymphs. And so we get sent home. And so at the time, I'm only engaged to Sarah, and she lives in Cronulla and I live in Greenacre. And so I drop her at Cronulla and I go home to Greenacre. And so I get home and then I'm sitting down and I'm having a conversation with my mum, and then my phone rang and she's like, they just rang me to come back. And I was like, why? And she's like, they said it's urgent. So I said, oh, you better wait, I'll come with you. She's like, no, by the time you get here, it's like gonna take you 40 minutes. I'll just go by myself. I said, come on, Sarah, just wait. She said, what do you think you're gonna tell me? I got cancer or something? I said, I don't know why you would say that. Anyway, so she gets in the car and she goes to this clinic, and then literally maybe 20 minutes later, I get a phone call back, and it's from her mum. And she's like, oh my God, Billy, can you speak to Sarah for a second? So I take the phone, I'm like, hey Sarah, what's going on? She's like, I need to tell you something. And I said, what is it? She goes, are you sitting down right now? I said, yeah. So I'm sitting down. Why, what's up? She goes, I got cancer. And I'm like, no, you don't. And then the minute she said that, I said that, she burst into tears and started crying. And her, like, things just were going really quick, you know what I mean? Basically, we got married the following week. She went into hospital. 2 months to 10 days later, she was, you know, 2 months, I would say 2 months later, she's fighting for her life. Then the doctor comes to me and says, we need to talk to you. And I'm like, is everything all right? And he's like, we will have a talk, you know, maybe bring, you know, your brother and, I mean, whoever you want to be there. And so we end up going to this meeting, me, my brother Jihad, my mother-in-law Garda at the time, my father-in-law Ibi, my wife's grandfather. And we sit in this room, and the doctor comes in with 4 different doctors, people who had been dealing with us during that 2 months. And he then says, you know, we've done everything we can to help Sarah, and she is really not responding to anything at the moment. And Sarah had been going through a horrific time. Just so you know, at that point, we had already saved her life because she had a blood clot in the center of her brain. They had to take her skull off. They had to do an operation to remove her skull, to relieve the swelling. And Sarah had already been through hell and back. And then they put a monitor in her brain, and one of the nurses who was cleaning Sarah turned her over and ripped the monitor out of her brain, right? We don't know whether that was the point where Sarah, things changed. I'm not the type to blame anyone, because I always say, Qadar Allah, you know what I mean? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does what He does. He takes who He wants to take, so I'm accepting, right? And we sit in this meeting, and then the doctor says, we don't think she's going to be around for much longer. And then her dad says, listen, this is my daughter you're talking about. if it's about money, I have money. My son-in-law, he has money. We will pay. And he goes, sir, no amount of money that you have right now could help this situation. You need a miracle from God. And right in that moment, you know what came to my head? Why do you want the money from 50 Cent? Because even if you had it, you couldn't save her anyway. That was the thought that came to my head. But prior to that, I was thinking to myself, I'm going to buy a Lamborghini. Now I'm thinking, even if I had that money, I can't save my wife's life, so what's the point of it? So right then and there in that moment, I said, I do not care about that money anymore. Right then and there. And obviously, in the afternoon, when everything like sort of fizzled down, I went home, I was in tears, and my mum still had no idea about what was going on. And she says to me, if you're worried about that money, one day Allah's going to find a way for that money to come back to you. And I was like, Mum, this has nothing to do with money. And I told her, she's like, listen, I don't care about what you're saying, but one day that money is going to come back to you, just be sure of that. And true to my mum's word, the money came back. But that's only through Allah's decree. But you see, I had to part ways with that for that moment, and Allah found a way to remove that want from my heart through this passing of Sarah.
Yeah. Just shows that you can never take anything for granted.
No, of course.
Yeah. During all of this, the betrayal, financial stress, you were still fighting, defending your title at the highest level. How do you ignore that kind of chaos when you need to step into a ring? What was that doing to you internally?
Well, I tell you now, on the night that I lost my world title, Allah's my witness. I swear to God, what I'm telling you is like not one word of a lie. I was walking to the change room, and it's a big deal. Like there's posters of me everywhere. There's screens up. You know what I mean? The fans are there. It's a major deal. You know what I mean? This is like in a no joke. We're in the Foxwoods Casino. There's thousands of people are there and supporters, and I'm walking through the corridor, and prior to this fight, I get a phone call from 50 Cent, which was like a few hours earlier, saying to me, listen, I'm not going to be able to pay you the money that I've promised you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, man, we're going to have to work something out. And I was like, you're telling me this like hours before I'm going to fight. And so when I'm walking to the change room, I'm in such a negative mind space. Guess what I've done? I rang my mom and I said, Mum, listen to me. She said, yeah. I said, don't watch the fight tonight. And she said, why? And I said, it's not going to go good. I said, I'm in such a negative headspace right now. I hate everybody around me. I hate the sport. I want nothing to do with it. Don't watch. She still watched, and I did lose. But I knew in my heart there was something wasn't right. You know what I mean? I should have trusted my instinct at that moment and said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to walk away. I'm going home. Because my lawyer, BaytulHuda, he said to me, just so you know, if you step in the ring tonight, you will never, ever get paid the money that's written on the contract, because you've decided to take a different amount of money, so we can never fight for it. And I was like, Adam, all of these people traveled from Australia to come watch me fight, and we're just going to pull out and go home. He goes, who cares about the people? Trust me. We'll make it up to them. Trust me. Don't take the fight. And I didn't listen to him. I said to him, don't worry, we'll deal with it and we'll work it out later. And he goes, we're not going to work it out later. He goes, you'll be making a mistake. He goes, I'm going to support any decision you make. He goes, so what's your decision? I said, let's fight, Adam. That's what we do, we fight. And he goes, all right, if that's what you want to do, let's go.
Yeah. Obviously, you eventually had to rebuild everything, your team, your finances, and most importantly, your trust. That takes incredible resilience. Where did you find the strength to keep going, and what role did your faith play in helping you start over, especially after that loss?
I mean, look, for me, it was like trying to get it back now. You know, it was like, I flipped all that, and I'll say, you know what, let me put that on the side. I'm a 2-time world champion. Let me try to become a 3-time world champion.
A comeback.
Yeah. I was like, if I can come back and win another world title, I can be on that level of Jeff Fennick, you know, a 3-time world champion. You know, I can make the history books, and that's what became my focus. Like, let me try to remake history. But here's the thing about boxing. Boxing is a young man's sport. By this point, I'm now hitting my 30s. And even though today you can still fight on to maybe 35 and up, but I had a long amateur career and there was a lot of wear and tear. And even though I had never really been injured, you know, I sort of felt like you know, I was coming to the end of my time in boxing, and so there's a lot of young people coming up, a lot of fresh people, and I'm sort of now, my use by date is coming. And even though I was really hungry and wanted success, what I wanted was, it wasn't happening. You know what I mean? I challenged for 3 more world titles from that point, and I never won any of them. I competed, and I did extremely well, but I never won any of them. So, you know, I just accepted that, you know what, I'm still a top contender, but it's going to be hard for me to get back to a world title. But the motivation became that I was earning such great money, I was earning these monster paydays, and I thought to myself, I just got to keep going, because all I got to do is stack the chips. If I can keep winning, I'm going to keep doing one. And you know what? In my boxing career, I had 49 wins. 50 when I beat cancer. But I had 49 wins and I had 6 losses. Sorry, I had 49 wins and 6 losses. But my 6 losses only ever came at the top of the mountain. I never lost a nothing fight. Sometimes people lose a 4-round fight or a 6-round fight. I only ever lost at the top. So I lost 5 world title fights, and I lost to Amir Khan, who was like 10 times my size. So I was only ever in big fights. I ever won or lost in big fights. I never lost a mediocre fight. I always found a way to win. And from the age of 21 until the age of 37, I was ranked in the top 10 in the world. All those years.
So 6 years you were top ranked in the world.
I was on top of the world for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
From the age of 21 until the age of 36. That's a long time, brother. That's
About
15 years.
15 years.
15 years on top. That's 15. I was 15 years in the top 10 in the world. So, you know, I was competing with the best of them, you know. And I was hanging out with the likes of people like Mike Tyson, Arturo Gatti, Floyd Mayweather, 50 Cent, you know, Shane Mosley, Oscar De La Hoya. I was with the who's who of boxing.
Yeah. In November, so the month we're currently in, we talk about men checking in on their mates. During this dark chapter, did you have brothers or friends who noticed you were struggling? Obviously, you told us that you had a brotherhood within your family.
Yeah.
Brothers you had and Ahmed, and they were in your corner and stuff. And more importantly, did they know how to actually help you? So obviously they'd give you advice and motivation.
When you just said that, you know, the first thing that came to my mind was my brother and I, Ahmed, were in the car. And at the time I was an ambassador for the St. George Dragons. So I was an ambassador for the Dragons, and they had invited me to come and do a training camp with them in Wollongong. And so when you said that, first thing that came to my mind, so I'm in the car with my brother Ahmed, and I'm in a really, really dark place. You know when you're in a dark place, you don't want to be there, but you just can't help yourself. You're very quiet, you're not very talkative, and here I am, who I used to be very talkative. I could talk underwater, and I'm actually really quiet in the car. And so my brother Ahmed's like, Bill, you know, we're going to train with the Dragons. And I was like, yeah, I know. He's like, you can't be looking the way you're looking when we get there. He goes, because, you know, they need an uplift, man. You need to be the upstand for them, you know, and you're not like really standing up now. And I was like, man, I'm in such a dark place, bro. I just can't believe the way things are going. He said, listen, I promise you, you're going to get another opportunity. He goes, just listen to me. Wallah, you're going to get another opportunity. Come on, man, let the darkness behind you. Let's go. Let's keep moving forward. We've got family, bro. We've got, like, come on, man, we're like this. We're together. And I was like, you know, you're right. But even though he was saying all that, I was still feeling like a failure, you know. I was like, man, because my whole life I was winning, my family was winning, now I'm losing, and I can kind of feel like that my demeanor is affecting the way everybody else's bounce is going on, you know what I mean? Like, that bounce, everyone lost their bounce for a bit, you know. I was like, you know, when you're champion of the world, you imagine I was champion of the world, my younger brother was still in school, and that was my dream. I was like, man, I'm going to win this title, and my younger brother's going to go to school and tell his mates that my brother's a world champion. I was like, how good is that? Like, how incredible. What a feeling, you know, like I was like, man, I'm champion of the world and my brother's going to go to school and tell his mates that his brother's world champion. I was like, that's unreal, you know. But then when I lost it, I sort of felt like, what are people saying to him? Like, are people, you know, are people putting him down? Are people telling him, sucked in, your brother lost or whatever, you know? You start to feel like that. You start to feel a little bit heavy.
Yeah, so basically it doesn't just affect you about what was happening in your life, it was affecting everyone.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just how it is with my family. Whenever I'm down, they're down. Whenever I'm up, they're up.
Yeah.
That's how it was.
Yeah. Now, beyond fame and success, your journey faced a heartbreaking chapter. We've seen a glimpse of that, but now we'll pass it on to Alex and he'll go more in depth. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So, Billy, you've been quite open in the past about the loss of your first wife, Sarah. How did you manage in that time, and what role did your faith have in helping you process the grief?
Yeah, I mean, look, I remember Sarah's death like it was yesterday. You know what I mean? I lived. It was horrible. You know, I remember. You know, I remember the day that Sarah died. I went to the hospital extremely early in the morning. I rang the hospital really early and asked them if anybody was with Sarah, and they said no. And I said, I got to come and see her. They said it's visiting hours are still not on. I was like, I just got to come, please. You know. So I went to the hospital, and Sarah was laying there, lifeless. You know, and the machines were doing whatever they were doing. And I remember walking in, and I sat on a chair, and Sarah was laying right there, and I'm sitting on the chair just right here. And I remember saying to her, I said, listen, Sarah, I don't know if you can hear me, but they tell me that you can. And if you can, I want to tell you that things aren't looking too good right now. And I'm sure that if you woke up and saw yourself in this state, you wouldn't be happy. So I want to tell you something, Sarah. If you've seen something better, please go. You know what she did in that moment? And they told me that she was heavily sedated and she wouldn't do it. But wallah, people think I'm crazy. She lifted her arm and dropped her arm. I was so petrified. I jumped back because they told me that she's heavily sedated. And I ran outside and I was like, oh my God, she's waking up. And they're like, impossible. And I was like, are you calling me a liar? And they were like, no, look, we don't think so. It could have been like a reaction thing. But I think that was Sarah acknowledging to me that she had seen something better. And, you know, and I sort of, in that moment, knew that maybe she was going to be leaving us at some point today. And so the day went on, and like it started early. Somebody comes like, you know what, Billy, you should go home, have a shower, freshen up. It could be a long night. And so I went home, I showered up, I came back, and then, you know, it was like something like 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock turned to 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock turned to 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock turned to, you know, 9 and 10, and I was starting to get really tired. My eyes were getting heavy, and so I remember laying down about 10 blankets on the floor to make like a little makeshift bed. And I put a pillow and I laid down and I put my hand up and I held Sarah's hand, and I remember falling asleep. I was out cold, and then felt like moments later, this lady was like, excuse me, and I was like, yeah. She's like, you might want to wake up, Sarah's getting ready to leave. And I was like, you know, I woke up like frantically, and her father was reciting Surat Yasin. The room was really dim. There was like this one light in the room, a really dim light. There was like a blanket over Sarah, and I remember waking up and just, you know, holding her hand. Her mum was telling me to kiss her, so I was like kissing her and hugging her, and then subhanAllah, the red light turned off on her finger, and so I was like, oh my God, this is it. And so then I moved it to the next finger and it turned on, and I was like, oh, and then it turned off again. So then I moved it to the next finger and it turned off again. Then I moved it again and it turned on, and then eventually it just flatlined. And right in that moment, like Sarah turned porcelain white. She was already Casper white, but she turned porcelain white. She looked like she was a fake doll. She looked like her color was like this, and I was so scared of her in that moment. I didn't like. Her mum was like, Billy, hug her. My daughter is an angel, and I'm like, I don't want to touch her. I said, nobody touch her, please. Just stop. Don't touch her. And it was a really heavy moment, you know. And I remember the waiting room outside was full of all of my cousins and friends, and I remember going outside and being like, I must have had a look of a ghost on my face, because everybody was like, is everything all right? I was like, look, Sarah's gone. And I remember like breaking down and just, you know, I had a friend from America that flew in to be with me and stuff. So I was like, it was a very, very difficult time in my life, man. It was hard to fathom that at such a young age that I would have to go through that, and Sarah at such a young age had to die. But what followed after that was mistake after mistake, man. I made so many mistakes after Sarah's death. You know, I made horrible mistakes. You know, and I'm not proud of some of the mistakes that I made. To be honest with you guys, I was on a train. I was a train wreck waiting to happen. You know, when Sarah passed away, I visited the cemetery every single day, and I would be there from the morning till the night, every single day for 6 weeks straight. I only missed like 2 days in that time. And I remember this lady seeing me at the cemetery, and she was like, "Is it a coincidence that I see you every time I come?" And I'm like, "No, I come every day." And she's like, "Why do you come every day?" And I was like, "Just to be with Sarah." And she's like, "She's not here anymore. Her corpse is here, but her soul has gone. She's in BaytulHuda. Why are you doing that to yourself?" You know. And so then my mum and dad became very concerned. And so then BaytulHuda, who's my best friend, he's my lawyer, but he's my best friend. He's my confidant, somebody that I'm very close to. He rings me up one day, and this is like literally 6 months after Sarah's passed. And he says, "You know, you're going to need to get over it, man." And I'm like, "Get over what?" And he's like, "Sarah's death." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm getting there." And he's like, "No, you're not." He goes, "Your mum and dad are suffering, man. Your dad tells me that you're always at the cemetery." And he goes, you gotta stop, man. You gotta find yourself another partner, get married again." And I was like, "Man, I can't do that, you know." And then subhanAllah, like literally not even a week after he says that, he introduces me to somebody whose name is Sarah, who has blue eyes and has light skin color. And you know, it was such I don't know what it was, man, but I'll share with you guys this dream that I had. It was, honestly, I don't know why I read the dream the way that I read it, but I read it like this because this dream that I had was me at the beach with my dad, my mom, my older brothers, my sister, and my sister's daughter, who was born on the same day as Sarah. So she said the same birthday as Sarah, and Sarah loved her so much. But I had 13 or 14 other nieces at that time, but not one of them was in that dream. And here I am in this dream, and it's all sand and water, and there's just like a runway that you can jump off to go into the water. And so we're all having fun, everybody's jumping in the water, and then next thing you know, Sophia goes missing. And so now I'm looking for Sophia, but nobody's concerned. And wallah, what I'm telling you is the truth, that this is like a real dream. I felt like it felt so real. And so I'm looking for Sophia, and I'm screaming for help, and please help me. And somebody, guys, I can't find Sophia. And then I look in the bottom of the ocean, and Sophia's in the bottom of the ocean drowning. So I dive in the water and I pull her out. And then when I pull her out, I put her on the sand. And when I put her on the sand, I'm giving her mouth to mouth, and I'm trying to resuscitate her. And I'm looking away, screaming for help. And then I look back, and it was Sarah. And I'm like, "Sarah, you're back." And she's like, "I'm not back. I'm here to tell you something." And I'm like, "No, please, stay." And then I'm screaming out to my family that Sarah's back, and no one's listening to me. She's like, "They can't see me, and they can't hear you. It's just you and me." And I'm like, "Sarah, please stay." And she's like, "I don't have much time. I got to go. But listen, I want to tell you, everything's going to be okay." And I grabbed her, and she disappeared. And I burst into tears. And then my mum rushed into my room, and I was actually in my sleep crying profusely. And my mum woke me up. She's like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Mum, I just saw Sarah. She was right there. I had her. I let her go again." And she's like, "It's all khair, you know." And so I felt like Sarah was maybe telling me that everything was okay. And so what was to come after that was I started to spend time with this Sarah. I got to know her family. Things seemed like they were okay. And then one day, no word of a lie, she says to me, "Do you think you'll ever get remarried again?" And I was like, "I think I would." And she's like, "Would you marry me?" And I was like, "That's a really heavy question." I was gobsmacked at that moment. I was like, "I think so." She's like, "What do you mean you think so?" And I was like, "Well, like we're hanging out, but we'll just see how things go, you know what I mean?" Anyway, 6 months after getting to know this girl, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to tie the knot. And so Sarah's now only been dead for a year. And so I decided to get married, and the whole world basically turns against me. I start getting trolled on social media. They're trolling me, they're trolling her. But I've got thick skin because I'm used to this, right? I'm in the boxing industry, and you get trolled all the time. And I'm like, it's all good, you know, this is part of being involved in the media and being a public figure. And she's like, I don't like it and whatever. And so then my cousins sort of started getting involved in the hate messages, not towards me, but more towards her, saying like, you know, he'd never marry you if Sarah was around. He wouldn't even look at you twice and whatever. And she started getting really offended. And then, you know, I'm now in between this fight that's going on between my family and there. And anyway, she then starts to, I don't know, things started to change, and I felt like I had to hit the runner, you know. So I decided to get on an airplane and I go to America just to sort of reset my life. And while I'm over there, I'm catching up with friends, and she feels like I'm overseas cheating on her. I'm like, you're crazy, because I've just seen my wife die, and you think that I'm in a state of going away to do haram, you know what I mean? Like, I go, listen, I don't do haram in my worst days. You think I'm going to do haram now? You know what I mean? Like, please, you know. Anyway, so there was this like breakup and whatever. It got really nasty. She then came out with this like statement basically saying that I was a narcissistic, violent abuser, and it was really bad, you know what I mean? But then eventually it went to court, and prior to her putting out this statement, she was silly enough to send me a message saying that if you don't give me $50,000, I'm going to destroy your life. So I screenshotted it and I held on to it. And so when we went to court, prior to going to court, when I showed this to the police and I showed this to the team, the judge basically got up and said, you know, this is not of Billy Dib's character, and obviously you're trying to blackmail him. And they asked me if I'd like to press charges, and I was like, I don't want anything. I just want to let it go and just move on with my life. And so, you know, I made a lot of mistakes, and the truth is that it wasn't until I asked for help. And here's the thing, right? One of the reasons why I wrote this book is because I couldn't ask for help. Because I'm Billy Dib, and I'm a world champion, and I'm supposed to be a legend of boxing, and I'm supposed to be somebody that people look up to. So how can I ask for help? How weak of me to ask for help. I can't go to my mum and dad and say I need help, right? But then Allah sent the help, man. I got a phone call from this beautiful lady by the name of Hajj, who I had done Hajj with in 2008, and I hadn't seen her in many years. And she rang me and said, listen, Bilal, I'd love to talk to you and see you. And so I went to see her. She talked, and breakfast turned into lunch, and lunch turned into dinner, and I was there for the whole day, and I was just enjoying her conversation, and I let everything off my chest. And at the end of the night, she says to me, Bilal, do you know what it is that I do for a living? And I said, I've never asked. That's how ignorant I am. And she says, I'm a shrink. And my mum and dad had organized that she would call me and she would get exactly what was going on in my life. And she said to me, Bilal, I've heard everything that you've had to say. And she goes, I need to ask you a question, because all you've talked about is wanting to be like your cousins, wanting to get married, wanting to be a father. She goes, but how many of your cousins are world champions? And I was like, none. And she's like, exactly. And how many of them have traveled the world and done what you've done? I said, none. She goes, exactly. She goes, we're not all alike. So stop trying to be like them. Be you. So I'll tell you what to do. Next thing you need to do is book a flight, get on a plane, go overseas and go and live your life. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you to meet somebody and to have children, it will happen. Stop trying to force it. And you know what? It was like the biggest slap in the face, but I woke up and I was like, I don't need this anymore. So I actually went on a soul searching journey for a year. I spent time with friends, and when I finally came back, life had changed.
Wow, that's quite an inspiring story. So do you feel like the dream was your turning point? Changing your life around?
I definitely feel that, you know, the turning point was Hajjanada. It wasn't even the dream, it was just Hajjanada. You know, what she means to me, she will never understand. I mean, I've sent it to her in messages, but you know, I don't think messages do justice, but I've told her many times that I love her and I adore her and that I look up to her so much. And even during my journey to Hajj in 2008, she was such a mentor and such an amazing human being to be around. I felt like I learned so much from her, and she gave me so much strength. And when I came back and I was on this journey to becoming a world champion, she'd ring me up before all my fights and give me the strength and the power to feel like I was invincible.
I think that's a good lesson, to always having people in your corner that you do look up to and that you do take advice from, and people that can back you all the way. Because without that, I think you'd struggle even more being solo.
I believe so, but the real message in that is to everybody who's in this room. Everybody. Because each and every single one of us in our life will go through something. And if you haven't gone through something, it's coming. And if you have gone through something, something else will happen again. Because that's just life. Life is never easy, and we're all going to go through certain things in our lives. We're all going to face setbacks, hurdles. We're all going to have to overcome certain things. But the greatest thing that we have to do is rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask for help. We have to ask for help. Anything you're going through in your life, you're never alone. We are never alone. None of us are alone. We can turn to so many people. I can tell you right now, when I was, I don't know, is there a part coming up where you're talking about the cancer?
Yes,
So let's just leave it alone then. We'll get there, right?
So then in 2022, you were diagnosed with the same disease that took your first wife, Sarah,
Yeah.
cancer. That must have brought immense fear and trauma. How did that feel living those experiences to yourself?
Yeah, so you know what, this is a really, really interesting story, and this is going to take a little bit of time to explain, but I'm going to do it. So prior to being diagnosed with cancer, I had spoken to a really amazing promoter by the name of Ludabella. He's a good friend of mine, another guy that's Jewish, good guy though. He says to me that he's looking for an opponent to fight George Kambosos. And George Kambosos at that moment was hot. He was coming off 2 losses to Devin Haney, but he offered me $600,000 US, and I was like, man, I'm in. Like, yeah, that's like $600,000. You're talking about nearly $1 million once you translate it to Australian dollars. So I was like, I'm in. Anyway, so I'm in the gym getting prepared for this upcoming fight, and I still haven't announced anything. And I'm sparring a good friend of mine who shares the same name as me. His name is Billy Dib. And Billy Hussein says, today we're not going to do any head sparring. Today we're going to do body sparring. So Bilal hits me with a body shot, and he actually hit me in my colon area, and I felt this excruciating pain like somebody stabbed me with a knife. And I was like, oh my God, you just ripped something in my stomach. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, there's something, I don't know what you've done. Anyway, so I stopped right then and there, and then I went home and I felt some sort of weird pain. Then the next day I went to the gym and I'm skipping, and I feel this excruciating pain in my stomach. And so then one of my trainers, who's my compman, his name is Brian, he says, let's go get something to eat. Don't worry about training today. So let's go. So we go get something to eat. He gets a coffee. I get an acai bowl. I start eating this acai bowl, and then my stomach starts like hurting extremely bad, like really bad. And so I'm like, oh my God, I'm in trouble, you know? So I go to the hospital, and while I'm at the hospital, at Canterbury Hospital, the nurses are walking back and forth past me, and I'm like, excuse me, I'm gonna die. And she's like, you'll be all right. And I'm like, no, please help me, I think I'm gonna die. Like, I literally felt like my stomach was gonna burst, and nobody was listening. And so she walked past me again, so eventually I just picked up this pole, you know, the pole that they have that has the, when they're giving you the cannula, and I picked up the pole and then I smashed it on the ground, and she came running out. She's like, oh my God, what are you doing? I said, do you value your life? And she said, I do. Why? And I'm like, because I'm going to kill you right now, and the cops are going to get here before you're dead, so you better help me. She's like, okay, I'll help you. And I'm like, you better help me right now. I'm going to kill you. And she's like, sir, come into this room, please. And I went into the room, and she stabbed me in the arm with a morphine. And I'm telling you, she knocked me right out. Whatever she gave me, knocked me straight out. And I woke up like 6 hours later, and the pain was not there anymore. Like whatever she gave me took the pain away. And so I woke up, and they were like, oh, listen, we need to do a urine sample. I did the urine sample, and then they're like, we can't see anything. And, you know, like, do you feel okay? And I'm like, yeah, I feel okay. And they're like, do you want to go home? I'm like, yeah, I want to go home. And so then I rang my brother, and I'm like, hey bro, where are you? And he's like, I'm at home. And I'm like, can you pick me up from the hospital? And he's like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm at Canterbury Hospital. I'm at Bankstown Hospital. And he's like, all right, cool. So he goes to Bankstown Hospital. Then he rings me. He's like, I'm at the hospital. Where are you? I'm at the front. And he goes, where are you, bro? And I'm like, I'm at the hospital. And he's like, are you at Canterbury Hospital or Bankstown? But I was that drugged up from what they gave me. I said Canterbury Hospital. Anyhow, I go home. I decide to go to sleep. I take some endone just to make sure that I have a good sleep, and then I wake up at Fajr time, and the pain is back to 1 million. I'm seeing death, right? And I don't want to worry my wife at the time, and my son's asleep, so I'm like trying to keep my cool, but I'm on the ground. I'm like basically fighting for my life at the point by myself. I take another endone, the endone finally kicks in and the pain goes away, so I go back to sleep, and then I wake up, and then I told my wife, I said, listen, take me to my mum's house. And she's like, why? And I'm like, I'm gonna die. I wanna die with my mum, you know? She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm gonna die. Wallah, please take me to my mum. I wanna die in my mum's hands, you know? So, you know, me and my mum have a really close relationship. So I get to my mum's house, and I'm like, Mum, Amut, and she's like, listen, you've probably got magas. I'm not joking. You know what I done? I'm not joking. Guess what I done? I was like, I don't have magas. I slammed the door, and the door opened up and banged me in the knee. And I'm like, oh my God! Allah took that pain away for just a second, you know. And I'm on the ground, and I'm actually in like horrendous pain, right? And so they take me to the hospital. I'm vomiting profusely. I've vomited nearly 50 or 60 times. At this point, I'm now vomiting blood. I'm vomiting like, and blood specks are coming out. And so this doctor walks past me after I've just said this dua. I said, Ya Rab, if you have opened up a place for me in Jannah, please take me now. And if you haven't, Ya Rab, please send somebody to help me. And right in that moment, literally 30 seconds later, this guy walks past me and he's like looking at me, and I go, brother, are you Muslim? And he goes, yeah. I go, what nationality? He goes, I'm Afghan. I go, brother, help me for the sake of Allah, please. He goes, what's wrong? And I go, I'm gonna die, man, help me, please. Please. And he goes, I can help you, but you gotta help me help you. I go, what do I gotta do? He goes, you gotta swallow a tube. And I'm like, can you just put me to sleep? And he goes, I can't. Listen, many years ago, when I was just a young man, I'm 40, but anyway, a friend of mine shows me this video of a guy called Mos Def. Does anyone here know of a rapper by the name of Mos Def? Mos Def's a Muslim, he's a rapper, he's like an Islamic philanthropist. And anyway, he did this video of detainees in Guantanamo Bay. They pin him down to a chair and they force feed him with a tube, but they put the tube through their nose, down their throat to force feed him. This guy wanted me to do that. And I remember watching that video and I was cringing watching that video, and now he wants me to do it in real life, and so I'm like, I can't do it anyway, so listen, I'm going to help you, but you got to help me. He goes, listen, I'll be back in a minute. He comes back with two nurses. One nurse is holding a cup, the other is got nothing. She's like, hold my hand, squeeze my hand as tight as you need. And so he's putting his tube down, I'm choking. Anyway, finally gets it down and he relieves me. They do a scan. The next day they told me that, look, we've found cancer in your colon area. And he's like, the good news is you're calling from a friend. The bad news is you've got cancer, but we're going to deal with it. Anyway, they remove it. He then wakes me up the next day and says, listen, we've removed all of the cancer. There's nothing there. We've looked around, but we do recommend you do some chemotherapy to clean it up. And I was like, I'm not doing any chemo, man. And he's like, why? And I'm like, my wife died from chemotherapy. I'm not doing the chemo. I'll find other alternatives. He's like, well, look, you're cancer free, and if you want to go home, you're free to go home. So I go home, I get to my mum and dad's house, I rest, and then a few days later, the family comes to visit me, alhamdulillah, salam, all these things. I put the video in front of this thing, I sit down and I told my friends and my fans about the ordeal that I've been through, but alhamdulillah, Allah's given me shifa and whatever, I'm cancer free, and don't worry guys, I'm getting back on the horse and I'm going to fight George Kambosos, it's all going to happen. And then a few days later, my wife says, listen, let's go to my cousin's house. We go to her cousin's house and the pain kicks in again. Tenfold. 10 times worse. And her cousin's a doctor, his name is Bilal, so he gives me some Panadol and he says, listen, we'll try to get through this one. And so he says, we need to take you back to the hospital. I go, Bilal, please don't take me back to the hospital. Whatever you do, don't take me back. Go back to the hospital, go through the most horrible ordeal. Next day, my mum comes to the hospital. We're having a chat and she's saying to me, listen, Mum, you are a good person. You help people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never do anything to hurt you. And Allah would never hurt me by taking you. So I know there's nothing wrong with you, Mum. And whatever they say, we're going to get through it. Don't worry. She's like, there's no cancer. Don't believe anything they say. And then next thing you know, this doctor walks in and he's got a folder and he's wearing a suit and he's wearing glasses. And he comes in and he goes, excuse me, are you Mr. Dib? And I said, yes. And he goes, and who is that? And I said, that's my mum. He goes, can I talk to you in front of your mum? I said, anything you can say to me, you can say to her. And so I sat down, and he says to me, he goes, do you know what's going on? And I said, no. And he goes, I've heard you have some, you're very reluctant about chemotherapy. I said, yeah, no, I'm not doing no chemotherapy. He goes, well, I need to tell you something. I said, what is it? And he goes, you're riddled with cancer. And I was like, what are you talking about? A week ago they told me I'm cancer free. And he goes, we made a mistake. And he goes, and the results have come back and you're absolutely riddled from top to bottom. And he goes, you're a stage 4 cancer patient. And he goes, and I'm sorry to tell you this, but you got about 5 or 6 months. And I'm like, 5 or 6 months of what? And he's like, of life. And right in that moment, if I can take you guys to that moment with me for just 1 second, everything paused and all I could hear was, and I looked back and my mum was crying, but I couldn't hear her, but she was sobbing, and all I could hear this ringing in my ears, like, and I'm like everything just went fast forward. I was like, far out, my son's got to go to school in a few years' time. Who's going to take my son to school? Who's going to look after my son? Oh my God, who's going to look after my wife? Who's going to nurture my kid? And all I spat out was, I can't die. And he goes, why? And it was the greatest thing that he could have asked me, because I said to him, I've got a son who's on the verge of turning 3, and I've got to walk him to school in 2 years' time. And he goes to me, you've just found the greatest wife actor, mate. And I said to him, what do I got to do? He goes, you got to start chemotherapy yesterday. And I go, I'm on board. And he goes, what happened to not wanting chemotherapy? What happened to all that? And I said, it's not about me anymore. It's about my son, about my wife, about my friends, my family, my fans. I go, well, I can't be a quitter. I've never quit for anything in my life. I said, if I quit now, I'm giving permission to my wife to quit, who then gives permission to my son to quit. And all this conversation is happening right there in front of him. And he's looking at me like, oh my God, all of a sudden now this amazing speaker's coming out. And I'm like, now I'm trying to motivate him that we're going to get through. And I said, listen, I got to tell you something. And he said, what is it? I said, cancer picked the wrong opponent. And he goes, I believe you. I said, cancer picked the wrong opponent. Let's go, man. And so the next day, they transferred me to a new hospital, and that's when the journey began.
You actually answered my next question as to what made you change your mindset to take the chemotherapy, and it was your family and your son.
Yeah.
So March 6, 2023, you were officially cancer-free, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But being cancer-free doesn't obviously mean that you're healed.
No.
What was going on were you, at this point in your life, mentally, were you stable? Were you still suffering things?
No, so listen, so the thing is that my life had changed completely. Like boxing was now something that I wasn't even thinking about anymore. That was on the back burner. All I could think about was how precious time was. And some of you may or may not know this, but time is the most valuable asset that none of us own. Not one of us in here owns their time. And every single day that passes is a day lost in your life, is a day closer to your death, is a day that you will never get back. And time is something that people they use it so recklessly. They waste their time with people who don't deserve their time. They carry on about things, and time is an asset that can't even be bought. If you brought all of the millions of dollars together from all over the world, we couldn't buy back 1 second. So how valuable is time? Time is that valuable that cannot be purchased by the billions and the trillions of dollars in the world. Yet we use it recklessly. And so I started to understand that, oh my God, time is the most valuable asset. And who have I been giving my time to? And why am I wasting my time chasing this boxing when I hate boxing? Why am I still chasing boxing? Why do I still want boxing success when boxing is giving me nothing but heartache? And the reason why I'm sick today is because boxing, and because I thought about 50 Cent robbing me, and because of all these things, I let people live in my mind rent free, which then made me so sick. Because I never took a drug. I never took a drug in my life. I never smoked a cigarette. I never drank alcohol. I don't even know what alcohol tastes like. I never did any of that, yet I was on the bed fighting for my life. So obviously I was doing something wrong. I was allowing people to live in my mind rent free. And when you do that, you allow people to live in your mind rent free, you're going to get sick. It makes you sick, and I got sick. And I was going to die. And who was going to pay the price for it? My son. And so you know what, I made a decision that when I beat cancer, I'm never going to say no to my son again. So it says, Dad, can we kick the soccer ball? Absolutely we can. Right now? It's like, right now, let's go. You know, anytime my son wants something, I try my best to give it to him right away. I'm not talking about gifts, I'm talking about the physical thing. Because, you know, our children, they don't want toys and all that stuff. They might want that, but they want us. They want us to be around, you know what I mean? They want us. My son has this thing, it's called separation anxiety, and it's because he's seen me see death. And so he has this thing now, when I travel, he cries profusely because he feels that I'm not going to come back. It's a separation anxiety, you know. My son is so smart. At the time he was only 3, but this is a young kid who was telling me, Dad, do you need a vomit bag? Like, this is not right, you know what I mean, for a young kid to go through that. But you know, he's beyond his years, which I'm glad to see, you know what I mean, and he's flourishing in a way. But, you know, I was living life, and in a way, like, I was chasing something that wasn't there. And as I said to you, I hated the sport of boxing. So why was I still trying to chase this sport that had given me nothing but heartache? My wife deserved my time. My mum and dad deserve my time. They're getting older. I need to be there for them. I need to stop worrying about chasing this rubbish. You know what I mean? There's so many things out there that are so much more important than what I'm chasing. I'm looking for dunya. You know what I mean? I'm chasing the dunya. And I wanted everything in the dunya in a halal way, but I didn't need it. Why was I chasing all this when I didn't even need it?
Yeah. For any men that may be watching tonight, or anyone present tonight, what would say is your biggest piece of advice to anyone struggling, whether it be with grief, depression, or any other mental health struggle that they may be going through?
My greatest piece of advice is that just know that you're not on your own. And through surrendering to God, I found a way to heal. You know, through surrendering to God, through turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I found a way to heal. Whether you're Muslim or you're Christian, let's be honest. When you are diagnosed with a cancer, or you're told some really bad news, and let's just say you're an atheist and you don't believe anything, don't you need to believe in something bigger than you to overcome that? Of course you do. You need to believe in something bigger than you. And like when you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you surrender yourself, I surrendered to Allah knowing that Allah was the only one that could take me on this journey. And if I'm going to live, I'm only going to live because Allah allowed me to live. And if I die, then Allah allowed me to die. Because, listen, I was happy to go either way. I'll be honest with you. On the day that I woke up in the morning to go get that PET scan on March the 6th, I had made a deal with myself that regardless of which way this goes, if I'm not cancer free, I'm not doing any more chemotherapy. Because the truth is, all I wanted to do was spend time with my son and my wife. I didn't care. So I figured that if I wasn't cancer free, if I could get another 6 months out of life, I'm going to spend it with my wife and son. And then if Allah takes his man, he takes his man. And guess what? I'm going to get to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the greatest of ways. Because he who dies from cancer, or he or she who dies from cancer, enters Jannah. So I was at ease. And to be honest with you, on the day, if you guys would like me to share with you guys what happened on the day of the PET scan, I got there really, really early. We woke up, we prayed Fajr, me and my wife. We drove to the hospital, did a little bit of a video. We got there, the gentleman that had been doing all my other previous PET scans was doing it again. I built a bit of a relationship with him, and so I finally get to this PET scan, and I'm really, really tired because cancer patients, they're always very tired. You don't get no sleep. You're in hospital, they wake you up every 10 minutes to check your vitals. You know, there's no rest. So you're fighting fatigue, you're hungry, you're skinny, all these things. And so I'm laying on this bed that's going to put me through this machine to scan me. And as I go into this machine, it starts doing this vibration and I fall asleep. Do you know where I woke up? I woke up in the maghsal. I woke up in the maghsal. In my dream, I was in the maghsal. And to top it off, my brother Jihad was there, my brother Imad, my brother Muhammad, Nasir, Yusuf, my brother-in-law Mustafa, and somebody who's very dear to me. His name's Angelo. And he's Greek, and he's not a Muslim, and he was in the room. But he's a very, very dear person to me. And I woke up in this dream, and I was explaining to them how to wash me, to prepare me, to shroud me, to put me in the ground. And just as they're about to put me in the ground, I woke up. I was coming out of the machine. And you know what? I knew right then and there that I was not going to die. I knew right then and there that I wasn't going to die. Something in me said to me, you're not going to die. I felt like this coldness go over me, and I remember I asked the gentleman who had scanned me, I said to him, tell me. And he goes, look, I don't know what to tell you. He goes, but things are looking okay. And I said, what does that mean? He's like, well, I'm not allowed to tell you because I'll lose my job. He goes, I got to leave it to the hematologist. I said, but come on, we've built a friendship. You and I are friends. He's like, look, man, things are looking okay. So I'm thinking to myself, he just doesn't want to say it, but I'm okay. So as I'm walking out, I told my wife, I'm cancer free. And she looks at me and she's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. You know, but I had no idea, right? I'm still waiting for the call. So I ring up the hematologist and I'm like, Dr. B, I need to ask you a question, man. Can you give me the results today? And he's like, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm in theater right now. Things are looking really heavy and I don't think you're going to get the results till tomorrow. I said, I haven't slept a day and I need to tell you something. I'm actually lying to my wife right now, but could you please call me back with some news? As I said, he goes, listen, I got to call you back. He hung up the phone, called me back a few hours later, and I'm upstairs in the room and he goes, I want to tell you something. I said, what's that? And he goes, congratulations, you're cancer free. And so you know, I go downstairs and my wife's downstairs. I said, I need to tell you something. You know when I told you I was cancer free earlier? I had no idea, but Dr. B just rang me right now and I'm cancer free. Anyway, she burst into tears. She's like, I knew you were lying. She goes, that's why I didn't ring anybody. And I was like, oh, you know, she knew, she caught the bluff. But you know, it was amazing because my son, we got to write this amazing poster and because we were like, how are we going to announce this to the world? Because literally the whole world was praying for me. You know, I'll tell you something amazing about our ummah, right? Our ummah is a special ummah. People that didn't even know me were traveling to Mecca to do Umrah on my behalf. People were ringing me and be like, Bilal, I'm right now in front of the Kaaba and I'm making Umrah on your behalf 5 times. And every time it happened, it was like a shot of adrenaline. I was like, man, this is the most amazing. Like, people love me. You know, and the reason why this was because in my career, I was always good to people. I always said hello to people. I never said no to anybody. Anybody ever asked me for a photo, even a signature for anything, I never said no. You know, when people are trying to rush you out of corridors, I'm like, no, stop, man. I'm nothing without my fans. Don't do that. Don't push me away from my fans. Stop it. I don't care if we're here for another hour. Bad luck. I'm no one without them. And I would take photos with everybody. And you know what? When it came to the point of me being sick, when people found out, people prayed for me. They didn't despise me. They didn't say, I hope he dies. They said, I hope Allah gives him shifa, because that's what it is. When you're a good person, people can see that. And when you do good for people, people can see that. And so, you know, I told you, because have you finished now?
I was just going to ask you the last question. How's your mental health today?
Before I end that, I want to tell you something. I told you all that I hated boxing at the time of my illness. I hated it with a passion. But I got a phone call from somebody really special in the boxing world. His name was Mauricio Suleiman. And he said to me, champ, I know you're going through a very difficult time right now. He goes, but I want to tell you something. When you beat cancer, I'm going to see you at the next convention. And I was like, there won't be no next convention. I'm getting ready to leave this world, you know what I mean? I'm not connected to anything. He said, listen, I'll see you at the next convention. And I'm in a hall right now with all of these champions. And he turned the phone around and all of these champions like Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Costa Zoo, all of these amazing champions were in the room and everybody was clapping for me saying, we'll see you at the next convention. The following year came and I got a phone call from the same man. He said, listen, congratulations on being cancer free. Am I seeing you at the convention? And I said, I thought you were joking. He goes, I wasn't joking. I was everything but joking. He goes, so I'll see you at the convention. Anyway, so he paid for 2 business class flights for me and my mentor to come over there. We got there. The treatment was absolutely incredible, right? And so then he invites me to the stage and he gives me a world championship belt that regards me as a champion for life. I was a champion of hope. And he makes a big deal out of it while Mike Tyson's there, all these amazing champions. It was such an amazing feeling. It's like boxing doesn't give you your flowers till you die. In the sporting world, no athlete gets their flowers until they die. But here I was getting my flowers in front of all these amazing people. And so then this conversation starts on a dinner table. We're all at this dinner with all these champions, and somebody says, could you imagine you had a comeback fight? How that would inspire people? And I was like, I feel like I love boxing again right now. I'm serious, right? I'm like, man. Anyway, so I go back to the gym. I'm absolutely horrible. I'm like back to scratch. I got no speed, no agility, no nothing, right? So I keep working on this thing, but I keep it a secret. I don't tell anybody. And I ring up Mauricio Suleiman and I said, Mauricio, do you think I could fight at the next convention? He said, absolutely not. He goes, I'm not letting you fight, not after what you've been through. And I said, if I can get a clearance, would you let me fight? He goes, if you could get a clearance, I might let you fight. I said, I'll get back to you soon anyway. So I spoke to the hematologist. He gave me a clearance. He said, you're good to go, mate. He goes, just get fit and you can do whatever you want. You're cancer free, champ. Live your life. If your cancer comes back, we'll worry about it. I said, okay, I'm taking your word for it, man. And so I started training. And then one day, I don't know what got into me, but I said to somebody, hey, film the sparring today. Because I just felt like the penny was about to drop, and the penny did drop. Somebody filmed the sparring and I looked amazing. So I sent it to Mauricio and I said, listen, this is what I'm looking like in the gym. And he goes, all right, I'll let you fight. So he organized this comeback fight, and here I am going to Germany. I've told everybody that it's just an exhibition fight. It's not a real fight, it's just a little bit of fun. Told my mum and dad, my siblings. My trainer knows that it's for real, but my brothers don't know it's for real. So I go there by myself. Then an article comes out in the Daily Telegraph that Billy Dib's having a fight. So now I'm getting phone calls from my family. They said, no, it's just an exhibition. They made a mistake. And then the fight happens for real and I win. Wow. Right? And so, but everybody's there, all these amazing fighters. So once again, I'm getting my flowers in front of all of these amazing fighters. Everything that I ever wanted was to be able to perform in front of people like Mike Tyson and all these legends. And I was finally getting that at the end point. And so I go home and I'm on a complete high and life couldn't be any better. And then Allah says, no, I got more for you. You deserve this. I'm going to give you something bigger. So I get a phone call from a guy by the name of Turki Sheikh. Does anybody who know who that is? Turki Sheikh is the kingpin of boxing today. He's like the Don King of boxing. He's from Saudi Arabia. And the Saudis have taken over boxing. And so he says to me, Bilal, we've invited you to the Ring Magazine Awards, which are taking place in London. And I get to London and it's infested with all of the champions. I'm talking every single champion you want to meet is there, from the old to the new. And I'm in this situation where people are talking about this comeback of the year award, and people are saying, oh, it's going to be hard, there's a lot of good names, and I'm up against a lot of good names to get this award. And then on the day of the award ceremony, everyone's talking about the only person that's going to get this is Billy Dib. So I've worn my best suit. I've gone to this Ring Magazine Awards, and I'm telling you, it's absolutely amazing. If you want to watch it, it's online. Just look up Ring Magazine Awards and watch the whole award ceremony. Nobody in the room got a standing ovation. Anyway, then they bring the screen out, and Ryan Garcia comes out and he goes, these are the nominees. The nominees come up, everybody's clapping. Then when I come up on the screen, everyone starts whistling, clapping, and then he gets on the stage and says, the winner and comeback of the year is Billy Dib. And everybody in the auditorium stood up and clapped me all the way to the stage. It was unbelievable. And I got my flowers for like the third time. And then I got up there and gave the most amazing speech. I nailed this speech. I talked about this book, and this is like one of the reasons why the book's on the table, guys. This book is called Boys Do Cry. Boys Can Cry, and Billy Dib does too. And this is about empowering our kids to know that it's okay to express their feelings, and it's okay to cry. And you're not weak if you cry. And I cry all the time. I'm not going to lie, I cry all the time, and it helps me. And as parents, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the ability to be parents and to bring kids into this world, He gave us the responsibility of nurturing our children and being there for them through thick and thin. And so this book touches on all of that and all of the experiences of my life. And I was told as a kid not to cry like a little girl when my grandmother basically dropped dead. Right? They resuscitated my grandmother, but the exact words that came out of that person's mouth was, how are you going to be a world champion when you're crying like a little girl? Pull yourself together, man. Let the girls cry, not the men. I was 14 years of age and that person robbed me of the ability to express myself. When my grandmother died when I was 17, everybody was in the maqsad crying except for me. I stood there cold as ice, not expressing myself. I was watching everybody cry, including the person that said to me, don't cry like a little girl. So I decided that I needed to take a walk outside. I walk outside and my cousin, who's my best friend at the time, follows me outside and he says, "Cuz, are you okay?" And I said, "I'm okay." And he said, "You know it's okay to cry." And the minute he said that, I burst into tears. He gave me permission to cry. So don't be that person who robs your children of the ability to express themselves. Trust me, it's not healthy. It's not good for their health. And it wasn't good for mine. And you know, for many, many years, I bottled things in. And I went on a road of destruction. Even though I was succeeding in my life, I was on a road of destruction. And only through expressing myself and writing this book have I healed. I'm telling you, my son, when I beat cancer, we were at my mother's house. And the reason why I decided to write this book was because what happened at my mother's house. My brother-in-law, who is the most beautiful human in the world, said to my son, "Stop crying like a girl." And the minute he said that, it triggered something in me. And I said, "No, don't say that, man." He's like, what? I'm like, no, don't say that to my son, bro. Say that to your own kids, you know, but don't say that to my son, please, man, because this is really heavy, trust me. He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Bro, you're causing long-term damage. I'm telling you, don't do that, please." And so, you know, my son cries all the time. You know what I tell him? "It's okay to cry, Dad. Once you finish crying, come talk to me. Let me know if I can help you." But that's what it's all about. I think it's all about helping our children. So thank you so much for having me here today. May Allah reward each and every single one of you guys. Honestly, you know, I've spoken in front of really, really large crowds, and this is such an intimate crowd, but I could feel I could feel the atmosphere. It's amazing. You can cut it with a knife right now. And I just want to say, wallah, thank you so much for being so beautiful in the way you've listened to me talk. I really, really appreciate each and every single one of you guys. Please, guys, listen to what I'm saying. Allow your children to express themselves. Be there for them. And any of you young guys that are going through anything in your life, just understand that you can ask anybody for help. It's no problem. Whenever you're going through anything in your life, you're not by yourself. Your mum's there, your dad's there, your friends are there. Lean on somebody. You know, just the other day, I was at an event and I met Charlotte O'Brien. Does anyone here know who Charlotte O'Brien is? Yeah, you all know, some of you know about that? Charlotte O'Brien is a 12-year-old who took her own life. She committed suicide. You know what her mom and dad told me the other day? They told me that she came home every single day and would tell them, "Please take me out of this school." And her mom said to her, "You know what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take you out at the end of the semester. I'll take you out at the end of the semester." She never made it to the end of the semester. You know what she did? On the day that she died, she came home, she hugged her mom and dad, she played with her little brother, she gave him a kiss, and then she went into her room and committed suicide. You know, like, that's not right. And she said that she needed somebody to be an upstand. And do you know what an upstand is? It's somebody that sees somebody doing wrong and tells them to stop. And so I've told my son, who's only 5 years of age, "Dad, if you see anybody picking on anybody at school, tell them to stop. And if they don't, punch them in the face." You know what I mean? I said, because it causes long-term damage. Be somebody who stands up for people. Never be that bystander who just stands back and watches people pick on people. May Allah reward you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you for spending time coming down to BaytulHuda tonight. We've got a little gift of appreciation just on our behalf.
Can I just say, Manal, wallah, you know what, you know how much I care about you and love you, and honestly, it means the world to me that you invited me. Like, I've known Manal for many, many years. She invited me to one of the schools, and her son was just a little boy at the time, and I let him hold my world title, and subhanAllah, now I'm back here and he's interviewing me, man. I'm really proud of you guys. Thank you so much, man. May Allah reward you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. That's going to go up on my trophy cam now, I promise. Thank you all so much, Ta. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much, Manasa. Thank you so much. Thanks, Steve. Yes. Yeah, you know what? Listen, before we finish up, let's open up the floor to some questions. How does that sound? I always like to do that, yeah?
Actually, I've got 3 questions to ask you.
Go ahead.
The first question is the carpenter, Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
You know how he said to your, kid, you're gonna be a boxer. You're gonna make it in the boxing industry.
Yeah.
I just want to know, did he ever contact you, or you contact him and say to him, man, I did what you said, or?
You know what? I never contacted him. He never reached out to me.
Yeah.
His son reached out to me, but he never reached out to me. I don't know whatever happened to him, but that's a really interesting question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know. You know why? Because I just thought.
Yeah, a list of things to do.
My second question is, that money that 50 Cent gave you?
Yeah.
You know how you walked in and then you said, listen, man, I'm Muslim, I want to walk out. And did you take the money with you, or you left it there? Just like out of curiosity, I just want to know.
You mean when we went into
You
that?
know how he gave you that big block and you said, he goes, take it, you said, nah. He goes, take it, you said, nah. Then you just took it. And then
Do you know what it was? It was $1 bills.
Oh, no way. It was I would have left it to you.
I had no idea what it was though. Why are you handing me all these $1 bills? But it's funny. So but I did tell you one thing, right? I said to you, my mum said to me that one day that money was going to come back. And I'll tell you guys a quick story. When I was pretty much coming to the end of the boxing situation, Amir Khan is a dear friend of mine. He rang me up and he said, listen, I'm fighting in Saudi Arabia, and this is the first fight that's ever going to happen in Saudi Arabia. Do you want to fight on my undercard? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I'll give you $50,000. And I was like, man, I'm in. 50 grand, I'll take it. What's good? He goes, pick anyone you want to fight. I don't care what you do. You knock them out in one round, it's all good. I don't care. And so then, like 10 or 12 or 13 days out from the fight, his manager rings me. Amir Khan's manager rings me and says, listen, I need to come to Australia to see you. I got to talk to you about something very important. I'm like, what? And he's like, it's really important. And I'm like, I'm going to be in Saudi Arabia in like a few days, just hang tight. And he's like, no, I got to come before we get... So anyway, he comes to Australia. I meet him at Hyde Park at a restaurant, and he basically sits down, starts talking about how 50 Cent robbed me for all this money. I said, listen, that's in the past. I said, I left that behind me years ago. I don't even talk about that anymore. I said, why are you even bringing that up? He's like, no, because I'm going to get there in a minute. And anyway, long story short, he says, listen, the show's going to get cancelled. I'm like, why wouldn't you tell me that on the phone? You didn't get on a plane and come here to tell me that? And he goes, we can save the show. And I was like, how? And he's like, I need somebody with a visa. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, don't you? And he's like, yeah, but I'm like, who, me? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Amir Khan's my friend. He said, listen, we'll pay you $1 million. And I was like, where do I sign? Well, I was like, so subhanAllah, the first thing that I did when that happened was I got in the car. I didn't ring my wife. I rang my mum and I said, hey mum, you know that $1 million you told me will one day find me? She said, yeah. I said, it's coming back. And she's like, how? And I'm like, I'm going to fight Amir Khan. She goes, but he's your friend. Okay, mom, don't worry about friends. Let's put that aside for a second, Yeah, subhanAllah.
I forgot the third question, sorry.
That's all right.
Does anyone else have a question?
How did you end your contract with 50 Cent?
I ended my contract by getting on a plane. I went all the way to America. I met with Floyd Mayweather. Okay, I saw him. We had a discussion, and he told me that basically if you release the contract from 50, I'll re-sign you, and we'll do some good things together and that. So then I came back, and so I was waiting to see if Floyd was going to come through. I bluffed him with something. I told him that 50 Cent has released the contract, but he hadn't at the point. And so in the end, I just the contract saw its due by date, and the thing was, at that point he had paid me, so he owed me $1,150,000 US, and he had given me the remainder of that already, and he told me that he would pay me. And so when Sarah was in hospital, I rang him and said, listen, things are really bad, we're in dire straits, and I need that money. And so he transferred $50,000 into my account, and he liquidated the company. And when you liquidate the company, you can't sue them anymore because there's no entity, so the money was gone. But it is what it is, It is what it is. It is what it is. Any other questions? From the boys? Nothing? So good. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Billy. Billy, we'll get you to start off opening up the food.
Okay.
Yep. The buffet. And guys, feel free to stay back and have something to eat and drink and take some photos.
Can I just say something before you all go? If anybody wants to purchase any of the boxing stuff, the books or whatever, come over and see me. I'm happy to oblige, I say.
That was good. Did you enjoy that?
I love it.
Do you want to go put something to eat and drink? You be the first one?
No, let me go sort that out.
All right, no worries.
Can you open our buffet?
Yeah,
Come on, grab something.
Just some photos first.
الحمد لله الله يحفظك يا رب.